Okay, so I've not used my workbench for ages now. I don't even know how long. I'm still cleaning up the area, so this is not set up properly with the lights and everything. How they used to be, they're kind of loose and whatnot. So I'm just going to be standing for now, and I'm a little nervous about this. This is hopefully going to be a little video on massively increasing the visual fidelity of videos that I put out, and um, yeah, basically, camera geekery is something I've not really gone into yet. I've always just used whatever phone I had. It's always kind of sucked, and there's just it's left a lot lacking. There's only so much you can do with the tiny sensor, right? Small sensor, small glass. Autofocus is nice. That will be something to get used to, but I basically saw someone selling a really nice camera on local classifieds, way out of my price range. So I searched eBay and I found one broken for parts, and I got a pretty, hopefully, good deal on it. So I have here a Blackmagic Pocket 6K, which is more camera than I could ever possibly need, and no autofocus, which will be a difficult workflow thing to get used to. But I picked this thing up as basically broken four parts because, as you can see, it's got a little bit of damage to it. Let's fix that exposure. She's got a little bit of damage to her. It was dropped at some point and hit back here, and doesn't turn on. Of course, it doesn't turn on, and there's no power switch, right? And it fell back here. So I'm thinking it fell here, the impact mostly absorbed it, power switch pinged off somewhere. So I'm hoping this thing should basically just need a minor bit of repair, and I will have a working Pocket 6K, and I can take insane quality video, like full cinema quality video. The screen looks like it's in fucking perfect shape. This literally just came in. I did have a bit of a peek at it. The sensor, there was like a little minor circular thing in the middle that kind of looked weird. That might be like a bit of degradation on the UV coating. Although now I really can't see it. That might have just been lighting somewhere else. But the sensor looks pretty much perfect. And let's pop that back on. Oops. Sorry, so I've never had like a proper camera. I've had like a little point and shoot with like the built-in lens before, but I've never had like a proper camera, so there's lots of learning and stuff going on. So the function buttons all seem good. And I can't really see anything there, so I'm hoping it's just like a plastic slider that leads over to a switch on a flex PCB. There's one really good teardown video on this that I will link in the description, or on a Pocket 4K. So there's a company in the UK, or like a little small gig. What did I just catch on that made that noise? Oh, right there. There's a company in the UK, or a little thing called Halo RC, and they make a kit for the Pocket 4K and the Pocket 6K, where you basically take apart the camera, put the board and the sensor and some other bits into a carbon fiber frame, and you can put that on a racing drone or some sort of other drone, and you can have a 4K or 6K cinema camera on a drone. So I found a video from someone disassembling the Pocket 4K that was like really good for reference and gave me some images of what it all looks like on the inside, and it's a fairly straightforward disassembly. And I contacted the guy who runs Halo RC, and I asked him, hey, do you happen to have any housings or leftover parts? Because I figure if anyone might have some spare parts for a Blackmagic Pocket camera, you would. And apparently he does have a housing for the 6K and the 4K. He has the spare power buttons because they use a custom board that they, I guess, reverse engineered the pin out of the ribbon cable in here. So he will sell me a housing that is probably barely used for 6K, as well as the button assembly, and that's hopefully all I need to do. Um, yeah, so I'm really excited. I'm really nervous because this was, what was it, like 600 and some dollars Canadian, 660ish maybe with taxes, and after the taxes and USD to whatever conversion, I set up a Gixin sniper, um, and got the camera. um, yeah, and like here's hoping. Like I got like a really screaming deal on this. I'm nervous. I'm feeling optimistic though, just based on where it hit and sort of how it broke and how the housing and stuff is mounted internally. Actually, looking at this, I thought the snout on the 4K and the 6K were injection molded to the whole front cover, but it might actually be modular. I'm not too sure. But if he has a housing for the 6K, he will have it. So I picked that up, and then I actually only found out this was coming today after I went. I really kind of got carried away and dove into this. So I was trying to find an EF mount lens that would, I could just use it as a cheap thing to test. And I was like, oh, I could go to a store and have it, just power it up and test it. But I don't know how they would feel about me bringing in a half disassembled camera, and hooking up a lens to it. I don't know. So I was trying to find like something with in-body stabilization in the lens. I couldn't find anything, or anything that people would actually respond to messages with. But I did happen to find, for $500. Again, like I'm jumping in before I'm like ready on this. Now that I'm seeing this is already 7 minutes, this is probably gonna be a multi-part video. I picked up a Sigma 18 to 35 1.8 art lens, which is like the gold standard for lenses on the Blackmagic Pocket cinema camera. It's a very fast lens, so it works really well in low light. It's got a good sort of wide angle to fairly tight range. It's not parfocal from what I understand. But this thing, it's a little marked up there, but the actual glass... Oh, that looks fucking sweet. The glass is basically perfect on this thing. It's got the original box. It's got the original packaging, like everything, for $500. And then I can't remember the prices of what the guy wanted for the housing and stuff. I'm torn. If I can fix this and just like glue the housing together, that might be kind of neat to keep it as like, hey, it says proof, but also getting a new housing would be nice. But yeah, I might end up basically, because this is on sale or for sale in a couple places, for like $2,600 Canadian still, and so far I'm under $1,000, and I'm really hoping this will work out. And I just, I kind of want to hook this on here because this is, I will say, this is bigger than I thought it would be. The 6K Pro, I don't know if I want to put this on a gimbal at some point. And the 6K Pro, I think aesthetically looks a lot worse to me, with how it's like a lot taller and it's got the bigger like nose on it. But aesthetically, I mean, I know from like cinema camera people perspective, it's not a box, it's not one that you can build out with mounting points all over it without a cage. Cinema camera people seem to not like this thing. I think this looks fucking sick. Like, I love the aesthetic design of it. Which is part of why I figured if I'm going to get one of these, I want a 6K. First gen anyways. Tilta made a screen. Sorry, so if you're not a camera person, if you're just like electronicsy person, Tilta is a company that makes cages and accessories for cameras that look really sweet. And they made a flip-up cage, and they made like a little adapter thing for to have an SSD behind the screen. And they're available on AliExpress, so I might look at grabbing one. I don't know, that bloats the price up, but man, like having this thing suspended above, oh god, my workbench instead of my phone is going to be a feat, because this is a lot heavier than I thought it would be. But yeah, this is hopefully my relatively soon to be fancy new camera. Ooh, don't want to put that down on the screen. Yeah, so pray for the fucking best. But yeah, apparently this thing's got reasonably good inbuilt microphones. But it's also got 3.5mm and even... I've got a little like mini XLR lapel mic here. That's probably awful quality, but it's... Oh. Okay, it needs the other end of the mini XLR. But yeah, this thing, they just seem like kind of nuts. Like bang for the buck, even when you're paying retail for these things, is kind of nuts. So what we're going to do, first of all, is I grabbed just a power cable. Oh, right, sorry. And Blackmagic ended up like an hour before the auction ended giving me quotes on a new housing, new mainboard if it needed it. And even if I pay for that work and labor with currency conversion, I come out ahead. Not as much as if I can get this to work without doing that, which I hope it will be fine. But it's still totally fixable and below the price of a new one. As long as there's nothing wrong with the sensors are right off. Although you can buy the main board on AliExpress, you can buy the sensor on AliExpress, so you can't buy these power buttons or anything. The sensor's like $1,000 Canadian. So if that has got an issue, then you just kind of leave that. So yeah, I have my power supply set to 12.14 volts. It's got a fairly wide input voltage range. I've just got it current limited to 1 amp right now. And then I have a D-tap connector thing here. But we're just going to hook this on here. And presumably if it broke off while it was running, it might just turn on, but the switch might be on right now. Although apparently they're kind of touchy turning on or not, so let's just see if anything happens. Seeing virtually no power draw. And there's supposed to be a light that comes on in there somewhere. Thought I just got a whiff of something burning, but I think it's just hot in here. Yeah, not seeing any lights or anything on internally, so I will have to start pulling this apart. It is actually drawing, like virtually, oh man, there's a little tiny bit of power. Like 5-6 microamps or something. But yeah, no light or anything. Oh, it's my LED ring light that smells hot. Because I'm standing, I'm not used to being close to it. Okay, so yeah, we will start taking this apart, I guess. I might start doing it tomorrow. Maybe I'll do that as a second video. Maybe this will be part 1. This is an introduction to having the camera on hand. And then just as a, yeah. Then maybe the disassembly and diagnostic will be a second part. I can see if I can just jump the pins to power it up. Or maybe I'll just get the guy in the UK to send me the stuff. It's not free. I will have to pay a couple $100 for the housing, and maybe like $300 for the housing and the buttons and the shipping combined if I want it fast. But again, these things seem relatively straightforward to take apart. This grip is like glued in. This has to be pried out, which are like the main issues, like the tally light. Man, this thing is just such a chonker. I want to put the lens on there. I know it's not working right now, so there's like no point in it. But man, this is just... like I said, I've only ever had a shitty camera with like a built-in lens. And man, this thing... Man. If this works out, this is going to be fucking amazing. I mean, look at that. That's just fucking sexy. I love the on the pictures on the boxes, they have like a Canon 85mm lens that looks amazing on us with how wide the glass is at the end. But that's like a super tight field of view, or whatever you call the millimeter rating. And it's a like $2,500 lens. But this lens is basically like one of like the only ones you need. Yeah, they're like Cine lenses. That are actually not awful in price. Like $1,200 Canadian. if you wanted a prime lens, which is a fixed focus, non-adjustable, or not fixed focused, fixed, whatever this distance is, like a fixed distance, like millimeter rating. So it's a fixed distance of like crop from the target. So it's like, this field of view you can see here. If this is not, but if this was like an 18, and then if you had like a 22 on it instead, it would be basically zoomed in closer. You can still focus them. I don't know. Camera people probably hate this right now. But yeah, we will see if I can get me a super fucking budget Blackmagic 6K. All right. Yeah, I think that's, with how rambling I am. I've been up since like 2 a.m. again. With how much I'm rambling, I think this will be a multi-part video. So this will be part 1, just sort of an introduction. And I'll probably upload it pretty quickly, just because I'm excited about this. I really hope this works out. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Stay tuned for part 2, where I hopefully fix this thing up. Yeah, this thing's gonna. If this works, this is gonna be fucking sick. Sorry, I'm really excited and nervous at the same time, because this is the lens I can use on something else, or I can resell. If this doesn't work out, that's $600 down the drain. If the sensor's damaged, but hopefully I can just jump some contacts in there and fire her up. Maybe I'll order just the switches from the guy first or something. I don't know. But yeah, Blackmagic quoted $300 for the housing, 6 something for the new circuit board, US, all of these prices, and at least $160 for labor. But yeah, the guy who makes the RC stuff is fairly confident the board is okay. He's crashed his a lot of times, and that makes sense. There's not a whole lot that can go wrong with the circuit board. Again, I don't know what the chances are of, like, I could see in the picture when I bought this, I couldn't see any damage on the actual sensor. I don't know what the chances are of there being sensor damage that's non-visible. We'll just hope.